Hi, my name is Christer Malm and I'm a professor in sports medicine at Umeå University. Today I will give you my view on early specialization in sports and the impact this has on children. Usually I start by giving the take-home messages just so that you can remember what to listen for. Today they are that with early specialization you will have a reduced chance of reaching elite performance. You will also have a prolonged athletic career with diversified training. You have to realize that most children will not reach elite performance. You practice for life. It's also important to understand that you cannot predict adult performance from performance when you're young. So what does the science tell us? Well, an overwhelming part of the research states that early specialization is counterproductive and will reduce the very goal of achieving elite status as an adult. The 10,000-hour rule that stemmed from a study on musicians simply states that professional players have practiced more hours than amateurs. They also state that an early start and 10,000 hours of practice is a result of parental influence. We all have a genetic roof, a max capacity every elite athletes try to reach. In most sports, there is no evidence that an early selection and specialization will give you an advantage. You will just reach your genetic roof at an earlier age. Knowing that both physiological and mental capacities mature long after puberty, reaching your full potential at a later age is an advantage for performance. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child became Swedish law in 2020. And it states, among other things, that all decisions must be made in the best interest of the child. Benching a 10-year-old at a soccer game is not in the best interest of that child. These misconceptions are based on myths, and myths are, as you know, false statements of the truth, just like the Swedish trolls. So who reaches the top then? I'm not saying that you shouldn't try. I know I did. But what is the likelihood of reaching elite level in any sports? In one study of US basketball players, close to 8 million children were included. 9% reached high school, 0.3% made it to college, and only 0.007% made it to play professional NBA basketball. That is 70 in 1 million. Very small likelihood. So what is the adult view on this? On the question, my child has talent and will get an athletic scholarship to college, over 50% of the parents believe that was true. What is the truth? Well, we saw it in the previous slide. Less than 0.3% will actually make it. At this stage, we have to talk about something called the relative age effect. It was in sport first described in young Swedish track and field athletes back in 1982. And later, a publication in Nature in 1994 made it common knowledge. Children born early in the season are more likely to participate than those born later. As many sports have a cutoff date in January, children born in the spring are overrepresented in most sports, in most countries, and at all ages. So, if we add performance to this graph, there is no surprise that children born earlier in the season also perform better. They are ranked higher. They're up to a year older than those born later in the season. But surely, this cannot apply to adults. It only applies to kids, right? Unfortunately, once someone is lost from sports, in most cases they stay lost. So the relative age effect seen in children also appears in elite cross-country skiers in this case. And if you look at all the Olympic medals ever given out since the beginning of the Olympic Games in 1896, it's more likely to win a gold medal if you're born early in the season. Interestingly, looking at performance of world-class athletes, in this case 1500-meter runners, they perform the same regardless of when they're born. It's just that fewer runners are born late in the season. Assuming that talented children are born all year around and not more likely in the spring, we have a situation where we at no point in time have the best team in any sport in any country. Athletes with elite ambitions are more likely to make it to the top if they're born early in the season. And some make it only because they're born early in the season. If elite selections and specialization was made after puberty, they really should not have made it, and future world-class athletes will leave sports because they're more often put on the bench and not encouraged to excel. They did not show talent at young age, and therefore they are missed stars. We can explain this by something we could call the tail effect. If you look at this normal distribution chart of children born a certain year, let's say they are at the age of 10. Some are born in the spring and some in the fall. By selection, some will choose not to continue, and those performing at the low end are more likely to quit. These children are also more often born at the end of the season, that is in the fall, thus being younger and less mature. When this is allowed to happen year after year, the next season the tail is lost, the following season the tail is lost again. And finally, when they come to age 20, to pick the elite teams among the remaining adult athletes, more athletes from the right end of the spectrum are available for selection. The selection process becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We could see the talent at an early age when in fact many great athletes are lost and not allowed to continue from sports. So talent selection, the number one criteria is to be born early in the season, and the number two talent criteria is to mature early. So if we look at a child, we know that performance parameters such as endurance, strength, and speed will not travel through to adulthood, and they're not predictable variables of adult performance. The only thing travels through puberty is skills and behavior. They remain into adulthood. So surely then, if you train really hard as a young child, you will win races and competitions as an adult, right? Well, what we can see is that, in fact, the very elite athletes have often trained less than the sub-elite when they were young, and they selected their sport at a later stage, late in the teens. Studies in Olympians, elite soccer players, and ice hockey players all tell us this. The true elite often pick their sport later. So why do kids want to excel then? Well, I think there are a number of reasons. They want to be the best among friends, they want to score at recess at school, and they want to be selected to the team. I also think that parents and coaches have a slightly different agenda. I call it parental proxy performance. That is, parents try to have a career or achieve something through their child. Most 10-year-olds cannot comprehend the impact of elite success. Parents and coaches, on the other hand, can. And I believe that this parental proxy performance gives parents status, it gives them possibility to get scholarships for their child to college, and they truly believe that their child is exceptionally gifted. But they live under false perceptions. Another common comment is that successful elite athletes today, like Tiger Woods and many others, started early. Well, statistics tell us differently. Most elite athletes did not have an early specialization and early selection of sport. So what has been said now has an impact on the future health of the child. More and more of the physical activity is in an organized form, and the spontaneous game has been replaced by organized activities. So consequently, sport organizations have a large responsibility to include all children, as inclusion will affect their future health. Also, we know that habits as young is important for habits as an adult. So if your child is active as a young, it is more likely that he or she is also active as an adult. We know that there's a strong correlation between physical inactivity and many diseases and premature death. Being deselected at an early age will inevitably have an effect on children's future health. So early specialization will affect public health in the long run. So what is the value of your child? If your knee hurts, who do you ask for advice? I assume you go to a physician. When you select a coach for the team, at least here in the Scandinavian countries where we don't have professional children's coaches, often it is Sam the neighbor who will be the coach, whoever has the Tuesday evening free. This is unfortunate because the parent usually picks the sport that the child participates in, while the coach makes the child athlete train hard, win game, and specialize early. The lack of educated coaches for the child is one reason for this skewed distribution. System errors in how competitions are organized and results handled by adults, another reason. This is why you see headlines like this. So what are the benefits and drawbacks of early specialization? Well, you can see the benefits here. You excel in one thing, you will get selected to the team, you will win youth competitions, and you gain status for the parents and the coach. What are the drawbacks? Well, you excel in one thing only. You only get good at one thing. What if a carpenter could only use his hammer? And you actually lower the chance of reaching the true elite if that is your goal. You have fewer skills as an adult, and that will have an effect on your health and possibility to exercise. There is also another thing. If you believe in the benefits, you have to be very research resistant. You do not believe in the conducted research. While on the other hand, if you see the drawbacks, you believe in research because that is research-based facts. In fact, the term that I stated before, parental proxy performance, has by other researchers been named pathogenic achievement by proxy distortion, and it can represent a variation of child abuse. So what can we do about this? Well, one suggestion is not to be your performance. If you picture yourself as this snowman, and you can see that the ground is your self-esteem and self-confidence, if you add to this your physiology and your mental capacities, then you will eventually reach performance. When performance becomes who you are, you have an issue. So what is the solution then? Well, I believe it's education, and there are many excellent programs all over the world. And at Umeå University, we have one program in exercise physiology. There are many others all over the country and around the world. So I finish off by the take-home messages that I gave you first, that if you want to be good, you will reduce your chance of becoming an elite athlete if you specialize early. A diversified training will prolong your athletic career, and you also have to realize as a coach and parent that most children will not be elite athletes. And everybody also has to understand that adult performance cannot be predicted from what you perform as a young athlete. Thank you for your time, and please visit Sports Medicine at Umeå University on the web.